Okay. So if you come before, just bring the key with you.
Like tonight, nobody will be there. I'm not afraid. I don't want to. I'm not looking to make trouble. I really work it. Not upsetting anybody, which isn't so easy.
Okay, so we asked a question. You said the klal, but kol ma'avin. Kol is the general rule. You can use everything for eruv, and you said the only two exceptions, water and salt. So Gemara says, 1 second. What about ve'o iko kmein fitriyes? Truffles and mushrooms, I guess you're not allowed to use also as eruv. Disqualified for use in an eruv. Elashmami, now learn from this. We cannot learn from general rules. And even if it says in a place where the rule stated, and afterward it says except. All foods may be purchased with ma'aser sheni funds. Taught identical biases. One taught his bias about eruv, and one taught his bias about ma'aser funds. One taught about an eruv, where we learned that water and salt are not valid for use. We learned only that water by itself and salt by itself. The eid ma'avin afilu aval mayim melach u'ma'avim cannot be used to make an eruv. But with water and salt mixed together, thereby becoming a food, we may make an eruv. Chad masne ma'aser, one taught his bais about ma'aser funds, where we learned in our Mishnah that water and salt may not be purchased with this money. We will learn that only water by itself and salt by itself, may not be purchased with ma'aser money. But water and salt mixed together become food, which may be purchased with ma'aser funds.
Okay.
Man de masne ma'aser kol shekena eruv. Man de masne eruv aval ma'aser lei. Aval ma'aser lei. Says the one who taught about ma'aser and said that salt water may be purchased. Kol shekena eruv certainly would teach it about an eruv, allowing an eruv to be made with salt water. And one who taught this about an eruv, allowing salt water to be used. Aval ma'aser loi. However, for ma'aser he would not teach it. He would not allow salt water to be purchased with ma'aser funds. My time, huh? What reason? For what reason would he not allow salt water to be bought? Because a fruit or something similar must be bought with these funds. When Rabbi Yitzchak came, he taught this about ma'aser, holding the salt water may be purchased. But we were asked from the following brisa. Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish testified before Rabbi Lezer. In the house of my father, this would be they would purchase fish brine with ma'aser money. Rabbi Lezer said to him, perhaps you heard that this was done. You didn't see it, you just heard about it. Only when fish innards were mixed into the brine. So Rabbi Lezer opposes buying strained fish brine, meaning it's just the brine itself he prohibited, even though it is used as a dip for bread. Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish, and even Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish, who represents the more lenient opinion of this brisa, said only that ma'aser funds may be used to buy brine. The shumana de feirei, for it contains the fat of the fish. But ordinary water and salt would not be permitted. Hence, the Baita contradicts Rabbi Yitzchak's ruling that ma'aser funds may be used to purchase salt water. Amar Rav Yosef said, Lo nitzicha, we're going to page 27b1. Lo nitzicha l'shnos nitzicha shemen. Rabbi Yitzchak's brisa is compelled to rule only when one has added oil to the salt water. Amar le'Abai v'sipuk l'mishum shemen. Abai said to him, if so, derive that he is permitted to purchase the mixture with ma'aser money because of the oil alone. It is needed to tell us that one may give the value of the water and salt with the price of the oil in one lump payment of ma'aser money because of the principle of inclusion, which permits the price of the principal portion of a purchase to become inflated by the value of the secondary unpaid for portion. It is as if the ma'aser money is rendered only for the purchase of the oil. The Gemara cites a brisa which identifies the source of the rule of inclusion, and is paying by inclusion permitted. The Gemara says, "Ein." And so it is taught in a brisa. Ben bag emer. For the cattle, this teaches that we may purchase cattle along with its hide, and not sell the hide, and with the proceeds purchase food to be eaten in Yerushalayim, since the hides do not become consecrated. You got it. You can buy. You have ma'aser money, ma'aser sheni. You buy a cattle with it, but you bought two things. You bought the meat and the hide. So he says the hide, you don't have to sell the hides and with the proceeds purchase food to eat in Yerushalayim, since the hide does not become consecrated. You don't have to sell the hide.
So you buy a behemoth and then you
take it to Yerushalayim, shecht it, you eat it, but you don't have to sell the hide.
The meat is consecrated, but the hide is
The hide is not.
It's your money, personally.
And similarly with the tzoin, with sheep.
Right.
Also teaches that we may purchase sheep along with its wool.
So you keep the wool and you eat the mutton.
And for new wine, this teaches that we may purchase wine along with its barrel.
I get the idea.
And for old wine, this teaches that we may purchase temed. What is temed? He writes that temed is after the juice has been squeezed out of the grape, the seeds are the temed, are left soaking in water for an extended period. Eventually, an alcoholic beverage called temed results prior to fermentation. Temed may not be purchased with ma'aser money. So temed is an alcoholic beverage that is made from the seeds of the grapes.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that. It'd be really strong.
But it says, and for old wine, this teaches that we may purchase temed with ma'aser funds once it ferments, even though the price of the temed is inflated by the value of the water which was added to make it. Whoever can explain to me the need for the phrase for cattle according to Ben Bag's interpretation, I will carry his clothing to the bathhouse after him. Meaning I'll be nice to him, take care of my timer, because all of the phrases are needed except for cattle, which is not needed. What is their necessity? For if the Torah had written only for cattle, babokor, to teach us the hide, to teach us the rule of inclusion, Avamina, I would think, only with meat that you buy it with its hide. Mishum de gufa, it's part of its body. When it comes to sheep, it's wool, which is not inseparable part of its body. You can separate, you can shear the sheep, and that's it, separate. I would say no. So it comes to teach me that it's okay to use to buy the sheep, and still the wool will not be consecrated, buy it with Meiser Sheni money. Because of Achmona Batsoin al Gav Gizoso, and if the Torah had written sheep, Avamina Mishun Chuba, I would say it is permitted because the wool is at least attached to it. But yain, wine with its barrel, I would say one may not purchase because it's not part of it. I guess not attached to it. And if the Torah had written new wine, only wine, I would say that the price of the barrel may be included because the barrel preserves the wine and therefore considered single entity with the wine. With temid, this alcoholic beverage that is made out of the seeds of the grapes, the temid, once it's fermented, which is essentially water with only the acidity of the grapes in it, I would say that one may not purchase. Therefore the Torah wrote old wine. So Rabbi Yochanan has explained how each of the four cases is a greater leniency than the one preceded it, so that a later case cannot be inferred from a prior case. Rabbi Yochanan now explains why the later cases themselves cannot be used to teach us the prior ones, thereby justifying the inclusion of all cases. And if the Torah written only old wine, so what is old wine? The velo kilis the piro. The vela kiilis the fira hu. Pressed figs from a place called Kila are considered foods. But in the case of wine which is purchased with its barrel, I would say that this leniency does not apply. If the Torah had also written that wine can be purchased with its barrel, I would say that the Torah is lenient because the barrel preserves the wine. But to purchase sheep with its wool, I would say it's not permitted. Because the Torah wrote so to teach me that even if I bought the wool with the sheep, meaning the sheep with the wool. For cattle, why do I need? If a sheep may be purchased with its wool, why do I need about a cattle? So Mo says, I would say a sheep with its hide, yes, may be purchased, but with its wool, no.
Because the sheep could live without the wool, but obviously the cow is not going to live without the hide.
And also the sheep cannot live without the hide.
True.
The Torah wrote for cattle to include its hide in the purchase. So thereby rendering sheep extraneous.
Okay. In
order to include its wool, this would explain why both cases are necessary. If the Torah had not written for cattle, I would have not said that sheep with its hide, yes, with its wool, no, as had been suggested. So let the Torah write boko. Why ba boko? So that sheep would be superfluous. Since the Torah wrote sheep, we are informed that by that word, that sheep may be purchased even with its wool. For cattle, why do I need it to be written? Now that we Now that we know that sheep with its wool may be purchased, bokal gavero may buy cattle with its hide. Is it a question? The hide certainly may be included in the purchase. היינו דקאמר רב נחמן, מה דמסגם לי בבוקר אליבא דבנבגבג, מוביל נאמנה לבי מסוסו. This is why Rabbi Yochanan said, whoever can explain to me the need for the purchase, or the need for the phrase, for cattle, according to Ben Bagbag's interpretation, I will carry his clothing to the bathhouse after him. Over what issue of Yehuda ben Godish and Rabbi Lezer, who both permit the purchase of fish, contend with these Tanoim quoted below who prohibited. Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish and Rabbi Lezer expound the amplifications and limitations. It's different than klal and pat. Ribui and miut. Amplification, what are you implying? Adding, and limitations. It says in 15, upon occasion, the Torah will pronounce a law or mitzvah with a combination of general and specific statement. First, it will state the law in general, expensive way. Next, a restricted application of the law in a general, expensive way. One second. First, it will state the law in a general, expensive way. Next, a restricted application of the law will follow. Finally, the Torah repeats the general, expensive statement. So the Talmud presents two methods of interpreting this type of pronouncement. Like, to give you an example of any animal that has hooves and chew its cud, it's kosher, klal. Any animal doesn't have it, it's also klal, right? Klal. All animals are. Now, comes the Torah tells you the camel is not kosher. It's pot. Specifically the camel. Personally going after the camel. First you said it doesn't, so a camel doesn't have it. At least he doesn't have split hooves. Fine. Or he has hooves and doesn't chew its cud. One of the two. That's already a pot. You have a general rule. Now, so we have the most prominent method called klal uprat, generalization and specification. Gives more weight to the statement of limitation than does the other method. The other method is called ribui umiut, amplification, limitation. While in Shavuos 4b explains the underlying concept involving in this dispute in the generalization specification method, the restrictive verse is an explanation of the broader verse, inasmuch as it defines the parameters of the general verse. It must be regarded as the primary legal statement. Amplification, limitation method. The restrictive verse merely states a single exception of the general verse, functions in the nature of codicil, modifying slightly the broader primary statement. A more detailed explanation will accompany elucidation of the next to follow. So what is the Gemara tells us? The Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish and Rabbi Lezer expound amplifications and imitation. Comes the Tanoim that are contending with them, they're disagreeing with them, and they learn differently. They learned klal uprat, generalization, specification. Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish and Rabbi Lezer doshiri buyu miutei. Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish and Rabbi Lezer expound the amplification and imitation. Here's an example. You shall give the meiser money for all that your soul's desires. Here the Torah amplifies. meat for cattle and for sheep and for new and old wine limits, as it seems to restrict the number of items that may be purchased. For anything which your soul asks, the Torah again amplifies. Ribo umiet veribo hakol. In all, then the Torah amplified, limited, and again amplified. The rule in such cases is that it amplified everything. Maya Rabbi Kol Mila, what does it amplify? It amplifies all edible items. Umay Miet, going to 27b3. Le Rabbi Lezer Miet Sir. According to Rabbi Lezer, it restricts fish brine. Le Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish Miet Maim Umelach. And according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish, it restricts only water and salt. But fish may certainly be purchased with meiser funds, according to both of them. And these Tanoim prohibit the purchase of fish meiser money because they expound the generalization and specification. As it is taught in a Baisa. The Pasuk first says, you shall give the meiser money for all that your soul desires. The Torah generalizes Baboko, Uvatsein, Uvayain, Uvashecho, Prat, for cattle and for sheep and for wine and for beer. The Torah specifies thereby restricting the application of the general law only to the specified cases. I say cattle, sheep, and for wine and beer.
New wine and old wine. The Torah specifies.
Okay, so that's the difference between your Gemara and my Gemara.
It's so funny that they have all these changes.
Yeah, the truth is that Sheikhal, 1 second. So,
No problem.
Sheikhal is it's called the Chemel Medina. It's the liquor that people drink, the
Right.
customary liquor. So in one place it could be beer, and another place can be whiskey
Yeah,
or vodka. In Russia it's going to be vodka,
right. I got that.
and in Europe it's going to be beer, right? So over here they translated wrong because it's not old wine. Sheikhal is over by me they translated right. They say Sheikhal is beer. B-E-E.
So they made a mistake on their
It seems like it.
revision.
Old wine. It's like old wine is wine.
Yeah.
It's repeating itself.
All right. Yeah, at least I was in the right place.
Yeah. V'chol asher tish'olcho nafshecho. What does it say by you, David? Does it say beer or does it say old wine? Maybe my Gemara is older. I don't know.
Yeah, that's Gemara. It was the first edition.
First edition.
I bought this when I first started in the I'm gonna get married
1990.
Yeah, I bought it in 91.
First
92.
impression.
Yeah, I bought it in 91. They didn't have the whole thing finished then. And this is
For anything that which your soul asks, the Torah again generalizes klal ufrat. You have generalization, specification, and again generalization. The rule is, in such cases, that you may include only those things that are similar to the specification. Just as a specification clearly restricts the use of meiser funds to foods which are a fruit that comes from a fruit, which are nourished from the ground. So anything purchased with meiser money must be food which comes from a fruit and is nourished from the ground. And it was taught in other ways identical to the first, which ends as follows: just as the specification clearly restricts the use of meiser funds to food which are generated from something which itself was generated by the earth during the 6 days of Genesis. Kol vlad vlodei, so it's also anything purchased with meiser money must be generated from something which itself was generated by the earth.
Well, that's changing it. You could say about the animals that they're not generated by your thing.
Yeah, the Gemara now attempts to identify which Baisa disputes Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish. Yeah, David's Gemara says just like yours.
Okay.
Amar Abai Dogim Ika Benaya. The status of fish is indifference between them. They argue whether fish may be purchased with meiser money. According to the Baisa, which says that we must purchase only foods which are a fruit, which comes from a fruit, and which are nourished from the ground, these fish are also nourished from the ground. According to the Baisa, which says that we must purchase only foods which were generated from something which itself was generated from the earth. Fish were originally created from water. Wow. See Genesis 1:20. So may therefore not be purchased with meiser funds. Second, Baisa disputes Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish and Rabbi Lezer. The Gemara now rejects Abai's answer as being inconsistent with another opinion of his. Umi Omar Abaye dogim gidule karkaniu. And did Abaye say that fish are nourished from the ground? Omar Abaye, but Abaye said, Ocha putisa leike arba, and more leike chomesh, tzira leike shesh. V'imita putiso nami lilki mishum asher tzasheretz. If a person ate small non-kosher aquatic creature, even it is less than kazais, incurs separate malchus penalties. Eating insects, creeping creatures, to general prohibition covering all types of creeping things. 2 other prohibitions that relate specifically to aquatic species, and 3 prohibitions that relate specifically to land varieties. Another prohibition relates specifically to flying insects. Each prohibition carries a separate malchus. Okay, so Putiso loikaba, this aquatic creatures, he is liable to 4 lashes. If he ate an ant, he incurs 5. If he ate hornet, he incurs 6. Ve'im isa, and if it is true that fish are regarded as nourished from the ground because they subsist on vegetation found on the riverbed or curve floor or ocean floor, one who eats putiso nami lilke mishum asher tzasher tzalot. Somebody eats this aquatic creature should also receive the malchus penalty for eating an insect that crawls on the ground. They go all the way to the seabed.
So, but like if you ate a shark, that's not kosher. It's not eating from the stuff, the vegetation in the ocean.
So they maybe also eat some there. He said the original.
The other fish.
I know, but that's his main dish. But maybe he's also nibbling on the.
And if he ate it on Yom Kippur, he gets even more goodies.
Okay, we'll see you guys tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Shabbos 6. Tell Gelman.
So there's enough Gemaras I shouldn't bring this